All right, let's jump right into today's explainer, taking us back to a time when a brand new United States literally had to fight for its survival. Today, we're mapping out the exact sequence of cause and effect that defined American sovereignty. We're looking at a crazy period where this young nation had to figure out how to stand on its own 2 feet, defend its borders, and, well, cement its actual place in the world. And look, this isn't just a boring list of dates to memorize. It's a genuinely thrilling story of cause, effect, and sequence.
So here is our roadmap for today. First, a time for everything. Then, mapping historical chain reactions, followed by causes of the 1812 war. From there, we'll hit the Monroe Doctrine effect, standing firm, seeking peace, and finally, wrap up with education rooted in morality.
Okay, let's get started with Section 1, a time for everything, finding the rhythm in history. You know, to truly understand history, we first have to recognize that human events don't just happen randomly. There's a rhythm to it all. This quote really beautifully illustrates this central theme of our whole explainer today. Just like there are physical seasons in nature, winter, spring, summer, fall, there are seasons in history too. There are seasons of conflict, seasons of peace, seasons of immense growth, and seasons where a nation just has to establish its boundaries. And honestly, it's our job to track these seasons and understand how one flows right into the very next.
That brings us to Section 2, mapping historical chain reactions, connecting the dots of the past.
So, to build our historical reasoning skills, we actually need tools to map out these complex seasons. And the crucial point here is that a cause-effect chart acts exactly like a giant map of falling dominoes. It totally proves that every single historical action triggers an inescapable reaction. See, when we study history, we aren't just memorizing isolated facts. We're actively looking for the why and the how. If event A happens, how does that practically force event B to happen? This kind of visual tool takes all the messy chaos of the past and turns it into a perfectly clear, understandable sequence. And by visually tracking this flow of history today, you're going to be able to unpack the what, why, and how behind the massive decisions that shaped the early U.S. You won't just know that the War of 1812 happened. You'll be able to explain exactly what caused it in the first place and what incredible outcomes it produced for the country by 1823.
Moving right along to Section 3, causes of the 1812 war. The dominoes begin to fall.
So, the first major domino to topple in the early republic was the British impressment of sailors. Now, at the time, the British Navy was quite literally capturing American ships and forcing American sailors to serve in the British military, totally against their will. I mean, imagine the absolute outrage. Just like a chain reaction, that undeniable injustice and intense political pressure basically forced President James Madison's hand. This led directly to a massive effect, the United States officially declaring war on Great Britain in 1812. The cause is crystal clear, and the effect is, well, monumental.
Now for Section 4, the Monroe Doctrine effect, a new era of nationalism. But hey, the chain reaction certainly didn't stop just because a conflict broke out. Actually, the end of the war knocked over an entirely new set of historical dominoes. The momentum here is just undeniable. Think about it. In 1812, the war begins. But by 1815, it ends. In America, having stood toe-to-toe with the mighty British Empire and actually survived, experiences this massive surge in nationalism. People are incredibly proud. They feel unified like never before. And that exact national pride paves the path for President James Monroe in 1823 to establish the bold Monroe Doctrine. It was a strict warning to European powers to just stay out of the Americas. And this brilliantly illustrates how a newfound confidence served as the direct cause for America drawing a firm line in the sand with the rest of the world. The Monroe Doctrine simply could not have happened, no way, without the rise in nationalism sparked by surviving the War of 1812.
Understanding this sequence is absolutely vital because it proves that no nation's choices exist in a vacuum. Every single choice has weight. Every conflict shifts the landscape for the next generation. By mapping these out, we can really make sense of how our modern world was built, step by step and decision by decision.
Which brings us to Section 5, standing firm, seeking peace. The moral dilemma of conflict.
This historical journey brings us to a deeply personal and honestly a very spiritual intersection for our own lives right now. While we're studying these times of war, conflict, and bold assertions of national sovereignty, this verse acts as the foundational lens for our own daily interactions. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. History's packed full of wars, sure, but this challenges us to look closely at our own sequence of choices.
Because navigating our own modern challenges requires asking a pretty difficult question. How do we actually balance strong convictions with a heart for justice? Like, how do you stand up for what is unequivocally right without unnecessarily starting a war in your own life?
Well, we can draw some incredible lessons from the past right here. Just as James Madison made the incredibly heavy decision for war to protect American sailors, and James Monroe took a super bold stand to protect the hemisphere, you too are going to have to make choices with deep conviction. You have to know what you stand for, right? But, and this is the key, your choices must always aim toward justice and ultimately peace.
And finally, Section 6, Education Rooted in Morality, the Heroes Mart Academy Philosophy.
This perfect balance of intellect, understanding our history, and having deep moral conviction leads us to the very core of what we're analyzing today. At the center of this philosophy is the idea that education, totally on its own, is really just raw data. In fact, education without biblical morality can actually be harmful. Think about it. What is the point of being incredibly smart, knowing all the dates of the War of 1812, and being supposedly educated if you lack the compass to use that intelligence for good? Morality acts as that compass. It tells you exactly how to use your intelligence effectively and safely.
By intertwining this kind of deep biblical morality with your education, you're promised something absolutely incredible, a profound peace of mind. The scripture literally promises peace to everyone who keeps their mind spiritual. And this isn't just some abstract theory. This is the incredible real-world experience noted as students actively engage with these lessons. When you know exactly why you're making a choice, and that choice is rooted in doing what's right and peaceful, the anxiety just fades away.
So, as we finish mapping out the complex cause and effect of history today, I want to leave you with this final thought. You are gaining knowledge every single day, but how are you going to apply it? Will you use your newfound convictions to build peace, or simply repeat the destructive conflicts of the past? Think about it. The next domino is entirely up to you.